Prosecutor here. I showed up for a bond hearing one morning and the defendant asked the judge if he could say something. The first words out of his mouth were, "Hey judge. Look. Like. The reason I hit her was because she disrespected me." He did not prevail. Not my case, but still my favorite story. Dude screwed himself over when he went to jury trial for a burglary charge and wore the same distinct sweatshirt he wore the night he committed the crime. Kind of hard to argue the guy in the video isn't your client at that point. Needless to say, he was convicted and spent a few years in dock. There's a lawyer in my town who has a reputation for being a real big dig. He left a very successful firm to go off on his own. He and the firm negotiated which clients he would take and how eventual fees from those clients would be divided. All seemed fine and dandy. As soon as he's out the door, he sues his old firm saying the deal is unenforceable and that he should 100% of the fees from the clients who came with him. He lost and appealed. Lost again and appealed to the state Supreme Court, where they shut his ass down and, in extremely diplomatic language, pretty much called him a big dig. Not a lawyer, but when my father-in-law and mother-in-law got divorced, she wanted to file jointly for the previous year because they were still married. They would have gotten a decent refund. He insisted on filing separately, despite the fact that he would owe $4,000, because he wanted her to also owe the IRS. He did it to frost her ass. Sitting waiting for my client and the judge is giving a mass colloquy for an alternative program on a DUI. Basically probation. Question: has anyone consumed alcohol or taken drugs in the last 24 hours? Obvious answer aside. One dude proudly raises his hand. I smoked some dope last night. He did not get probation. One time, I saw an indigent defendant who was in custody tell the judge his public defender wasn't working hard enough and he wanted the judge to appoint different counsel. The judge asked him what specifically was the problem and he said, "I don't want a female lawyer. I need a man who can take charge and fight for me," or something very similar to that. The judge, also female, said that's not how it works. Then he started yelling and getting into specifics about his public defender. Just mainly, "I don't like her. She won't visit me. etc." The judge is annoyed and looks at him and is like, "Fine. I'll appoint another attorney for you. But because you are not satisfied with your attorney and I need time to appoint you new counsel, I am not going to hear any other issues today and will reset your case." A few days later, the judge sends defendant notice of his new appointed attorney, who happens to also be female, and notice of the case reset for 6 weeks. The case was originally set for a bond hearing and the DA and his PD had agreed to release him on an unsecured bond, meaning he would have gotten out that day if he hadn't thrown his temper tantrum. Instead, he waited another 6 weeks in jail just to have another female attorney represent. A wife filed for a restraining order because she wanted the house during divorce. Husband has good job, like $200K per year. Employer finds out about restraining order. Husband is fired. He was very specialized employee, so only job he can find closed to house. Ex-wife and daughter is $50K. House gets foreclosed. Child support at less than $500 per month. Wife has to get job as waitress. 4 cars get repossessed. Kind of a self-screw, but the MPAA entered DVD John's code for breaking DVD copy protection as part of their lawsuit into their evidence, which then became public record. The code that breaks DVD copy protection was now available to the entire world, defeating the entire purpose of their lawsuit. That really was a moment of genius. Was involved in a custody case where a wife cheated on her husband and had a child as a result. She let husband believe the child was his until she was about 5 years old and they were divorcing. To stop him from getting custody, she convinced the biological father to try to get custody, thinking that if he won she would wind up with the child. Became a huge 3-way fight. Multiple sets of grandparents involved. Attorney's fees skyrocketed because the case would have been pretty quick otherwise. She couldn't pay her attorney. Tried to get the bio dad too. Got even messier. etc. Basically, there still isn't an agreement all parties will follow. They are in and out of court every year or so. She screwed herself. This wasn't my case but followed it closely because it was an acquaintance's divorce proceedings. He and his now ex-wife shared some commercial property that was worth some dough. They were both on the paperwork had access to the same info. Well, some shit hit the fan and the property was in arrears and I think some lien was filed. The husband would try to talk to his then wife about the whole thing and she would blow him off. Not only would she ignore him and the finances, she started cheating on him. Fast forward to divorce. It's contentious and they get down to fighting for the primary residence whose market value, unencumbered, is much less than the commercial building. She demanded the house and the husband effectively offered to give her the commercial building if he could keep the residence. She never paid attention to how bad off the commercial building was and for some strange reason her lawyer didn't do any due diligence so they took the deal. I don't know if the asset allocation included any saving conditions or caveats for the ex-wife. But I did like to see that her own disinterest may have led to bargaining for an underwater property instead of a paid-off house. Had a criminal jury trial for misdemeanor criminal mischief over 4 years ago. State filed charges and kept amending the information to the point where they left the actual victim out of the trial and proceeded with the 2 eyewitnesses. Well, one of the witnesses was my client's ex and the other witness was the ex's new GF. They claimed my client vandalized the actual victim's car. Client denied everything. Well, apparently, the state and both witnesses had no idea that the ex had a outstanding warrant for not paying child support to my client, which created a motive for him to lie. Asked him if he was aware that he had a warrant out for his arrest on the stand. He didn't know. The judge excused the jurors. The bailiffs arrested the ex on the stand. State rested. Judge granted our motion for judgment of acquittal because we had good case law for the victim not being there. Client walked away free and the ex went to jail. A witness for the plaintiff in a civil suit, who was a co-worker of the plaintiff, testified very strongly against the company and in favor of the plaintiff. I questioned her about bias toward the plaintiff. If they knew each other well, were friends, etc. She said, no, just friendly co-workers. Work friends at best. I pinned her to it. When I got a chance to cross-examine the plaintiff, she had no choice but to burn her witness's credibility. Because not only were they very close friends, but they had become sisters-in-law just a few years before. No, they did not have the same last name or anything. But I had done my homework. I still don't get why people want to fight small bias by destroying their credibility. But it happens more than you'd think. I'm a paralegal. The best situations are when we get a sovereign citizen, someone in the USA who thinks that the US laws do not apply to them for a vast variety of reasons, hire us but won't let us do anything on their case. We've had to actually fire a bunch of clients because they have gone against our rules, like, don't send a letter to the judge. Don't write your own motions. Don't announce that you're not Mark Smith because Mark Smith has capital letters and you were born with lowercase letters. etc. Honestly, a whole thread on these people wouldn't be enough. Lady brought a frivolous case to get out of a contract she signed. She lost. Then sued the attorney and the witnesses for conspiring against her. They got her case dismissed and an award of attorney's fees which she refused to pay. Lawyer recorded it as a lien on her house and scheduled a foreclosure sale, which caused her mortgage lender to declare a default and accelerate entire mortgage balance. Lawyer made a side deal with lender to pay them all proceeds of the sale and then sold her house on courthouse steps to highest bidder and then arranged for sheriff to forcibly eject her onto the street with her sheet. She's homeless now. Short story, honor your contracts and don't sue your lawyer when you don't. Police officer. Not a lawyer. I've had 2 different people I've arrested for DUI show up to court drunk, not on the same day. The judge was not amused. Both of them got sent straight to jail for a couple days for contempt. And their cases were rescheduled. One of them showed up to court drunk a second time when the case was rescheduled. The judge was even less amused for the sequel. I am not a lawyer, but I heard a story about a woman who had her soon-to-be ex-husband over during a custody battle and seduced him by getting him heavily intoxicated. She led him out to his car, sat him in the driver's seat and then called the police. He got a DWI and lost his parental rights. Now a lawyer. But a friend properly screwed over his ex-wife. He thought things were not going well. She seemed off. He did a little digging and saw enough to prove she was cheating. He hired a private detective. The detective got pics of her kissing a dude, going to his house, plus the cell phone call log, credit card statements, etc. Then, she asks for a divorce and claims he is being unfaithful. She claims she has been nothing but a loving wife, yet provides no proof he is cheating. He pulls out a 3-inch binder with a couple-month log. Photos of her going into restaurants with her boyfriend. Pictures kissing him in the parking lot. Pictures of her car at his place. Text log. etc. etc. Both married people had equally high-paying jobs. She wanted to take him to the ringer. He threw out some offer like $25k cash. And nothing else. No retirement funds. No house. To child support. etc. Plus he wanted the kids. Basically take $25k and walk it. A lawyer told her she better take it. And she did. My dad was a judge and had someone on trial for DUI. Guy would not stop running his mouth and was trash talking everyone in the room. He instructed him to stop. Dude did not stop. Dad placed him in contempt of court for 90 days. Dude gets out. Goes back to trial. First thing, he starts running his mouth again. Boom. Another 90 days in jail for contempt. 180 days in jail when a DUI in our state is only 60 days for his level of DUI. Now but, a friend kept meticulous records of how much time his estranged wife spent with their daughter. He used pink highlighter for mom and blue highlighter for himself. Mom sailed into arbitration demanding full custody and handsome child support in the house. Dad pulled out 3 years' worth of year-long calendars. Mom had spent less than a full month with the child in 3 years. Mom was not happy with the outcome. Knew a guy going through a divorce whose wife had cheated on him. During the proceedings he liquidated his $401k and sold the house which was in his name. It was more than $1 million. He was a dual-us Romanian citizen. He just left for Romania a few days before their divorce was final with the money. All she got was her BMW lease. I took my ex to court because she had used my social security number to sign up for cable. I found out about it when she stopped paying for the service. She screwed herself over by just being herself. We show up to court. I turn in the contract from the cable company, showing my social security number and her own name signed on the contract. She didn't even try to forge my signature. She signed her own name in and tried to deny that she had any part of it. The judge tore her apart and it was nice. This person screwed themselves and their company. Used to practice employment law and had a guy who was terminated. In part allegedly due to his race. His former boss was on the stand and was under direct questioning from his attorney. His attorney asked if there was a reason that he singled out our client in his treatment, assumingly to get to the fact that our guy had disciplinary issues and had been put on a performance improvement plan. Instead he went off and talked about how just have to treat those people differently and you can't talk to them the same way you do others. Our cross-examination was very short. Employee was black and boss was Asian if it matters. People always seem to ask when I tell the story. My best friend's dad. He left his mom when he was 50 for a 32-yo. On a Christmas dinner my friend, his brother and the dad have a discussion and the girl decides she needs to be involved. Things heat up and she throws my friend's phone through the windows. So he gets her laptop and does the same and then him and his brother leave the house. A week later he gets a court notice asking him to appear in front of the judge for an assault on the girl. She told the police they beat her. His dad declared it was true. Luckily they had no evidence so they dismissed the case. His brother is getting married this week and his father won't be present. Saw a guy with a good job, around 120k a year, adopt his new wife's 5 children. 6 months later she files for divorce and guess who is on the hook for child support for 5? Who? There's no way that wasn't planned. Paralegal here. We had a client show up to court-ordered mediation several hours late. Straight from a lake trip. Part of my job is to call clients a day or two before these kinds of things to remind them of the importance of the hearing. I told her specifically it is vital that you show up on time. Dressed appropriately. When she did show up, my boss took one look at her and said, "You understand we have to take whatever offer they give us, right? Because there is no way I'm taking you to trial."